Happy Thursday, everyone. I wanted to hop on here real quick. If you are a director, VP, senior individual contributor with more than 15 years of experience, and you find yourself rambling when it comes to selling yourself in interviews, or even when it comes to advocating for yourself in order to get a promotion, this is for you. I have been coaching professionals for the past 6 years. And one of my specialties, other than helping professionals identify what their value proposition is and their sweet spot, is actually learning how to tell their story. In fact, I have created my entire program around storytelling because I do believe that as a professional, you need to know who you are through your story. To be human is to actually have a story. And when people tell me I don't have a good story or I'm not a great storyteller, I don't believe them because human beings are basically the only species on the planet who are actually storytellers. Okay. So I just finished a session with my clients and it was extremely valuable for them because let's face it, the reason a lot of executives have trouble being concise is because you have so much experience. You have 15, 20, 30 years of experience. And it is so difficult to pick and choose from these experiences what to share. And one of the mistakes that I find that my clients go through and that I've just seen in the session that I just did is what I call information hoarding. You are so attached to every win that you've created for organizations, and you are so attached to all of the events that unfolded in your projects, in the products that you've launched, that you're just not able to choose what to share. So, when it comes to telling a story and when it comes to sharing the work that you've done at organizations, I want to give you this analogy. Your entire career is a TV series. Let's think about what your favorite TV series is. Mine is Friends. Okay. Anyone here is familiar with the TV show Friends? Okay. So your entire career is the entire TV series, right? And within the TV series, there are multiple, basically, multiple series. Series number one, series number two, and then within each one, there are episodes, right? So here's the thing. In a single company, you've launched so many projects and products. That's basically an entire season. Hi, Jay. How's it going? Within a season, right, there are multiple episodes, and those are basically the projects that you've held. And within each episode, there are multiple scenes and events. Now, what do you all do in an interview? You're giving the recruiter and the hiring manager the entire series, and it's so hard for them to comprehend when really what you should be giving them is not even an episode. You're giving them, yes, seasons. Thank you so much for helping me out. Yeah. So if you give a recruiter the entire season, that's a lot for them to take in, especially in 2 minutes. And what you need to do is you need to give them a couple of scenes within the entire episode. So let me share with you an example. When I was at a company called Slalom, right? If a recruiter asked me, tell me about a time that you have aligned stakeholders, I'm not going to talk about my entire time at Slalom or give an overview of my work at Slalom, because when you do that, you're not being specific and you're not going deep enough. I mean, if I just rattle out that I worked with, X number of clients and I launched Y number of products, that doesn't really answer the question. And if I just say, yeah, tell me about a time that you've aligned stakeholders. Yes, I've aligned stakeholders across, 5 different projects. That doesn't give a recruiter proof around your ability to align effectively. And so, what you need to do is, instead of talking about every single project that you worked at your organization, pick one. This is why the rule of one exists. Pick one, because it's going to be easy for them to wrap their head around it. Remember, we're not giving them the whole episode. We are giving them a couple of scenes as proof. Okay? So I'll give you guys an example. So when I was at Slalom, I worked with a client called Cheetah Digital. Cheetah Digital, what they do is they create marketing campaigns for organizations like Gap and Banana Republic, Verizon, all kinds of companies. And so when I give an example of how I align stakeholders, I'm going to go into a specific project that I worked on. So the project is going to be Cheetah Digital. Now, I'm not going to tell you guys about everything that I've done for this client, because that's also still too much to share in a 2-minute answer. So I'm going to narrow down into a specific moment. And that's the problem that I see with a lot of folks, is that when you tell a story is not giving an overview. It's not regurgitating a resume. In order for a story to sound like a story, you need to zone into a moment, something that happened. Okay, now the challenge is, which moment should you pick? Because there could be many moments. So I told you guys that the question that I'm being asked is, tell me about a time that you aligned stakeholders. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into a challenge that I had aligning stakeholders. Now, if you all understand the framework of SOAR or STAR, there's situation, there's obstacle, there's action, there's result. The trick that I like to give my clients is the challenge that you faced on a project, on an initiative, on a product needs to map into the question that they're giving you. So if the question is aligning stakeholders, I need to show that the difficulty and the challenge that I faced is aligning stakeholders during that initiative. Now, how are we going to build the story? When it comes to stories, I'm going to give you all a trick. This is another magic trick that's going to help you make your story concise. Your stories in the corporate world need to represent a transformation, because as a leader, as an executive, you're brought in to create a change. So rather than sounding like an instructional manual where you're saying, I did this and I did that and I did this, that is boring as heck. You want to show what you changed. And don't say we, please, because they're not interviewing your whole team. They're interviewing you as a leader. So ask yourself, as a leader, what did you change? So when we talk about change, there's a before the change happened, and then there's the after the change happened. And so paint the picture of what life was like before you came in as a leader to create the change, and what life is like after. Okay? So in my story, the before is that my boss, we were sitting in a Chicago office, and he wanted us to launch a Salesforce solution that was highly customized in 6 weeks, when it actually takes 3 months of effort. That's insane, right? Trying to condense, a timeline from 3 months to 6 weeks. Okay, so how did I solve this? I solved it through a conversation that I had with a UX designer. But before I actually get into how I solved this, I want to tell you the obstacle that made it difficult for us to actually reduce the timeline from 3 months to 6 weeks. And the obstacle is that every single stakeholder, they wanted us to build the solution differently. They were not aligned. And you see, I'm answering the question here because the hiring manager wants to know, how does Nada align teams? Can she do that effectively? So my answer needs to demonstrate that. I'm not going into the weeds of how we built the Salesforce solution. They don't care about that. They want you to answer the question directly. And how you answer it directly is, instead of geeking out on, going to instructional manual mode and saying, I did this and I did that, right? We need to talk about my approach. We need to spend more time on my approach of how I align stakeholders versus everything else that happened. Don't be information hoarders. Give just as much information as the hiring manager needs in order to understand how you think. Okay, so what happened was, as I was going into the fourth meeting and realizing that now we've gone into 4 meetings and every stakeholder wanted us to build things differently, I said to my UX designer, there's no way that we're going to be able to build this because we're literally on our 4th meeting. And every single one of these meetings that we have been to wants us to build the solution differently. So I said to him, you know what we're going to do? We are going to tell the developers to just build the out of the box solution as we're gathering our requirements. And I bet you by the time that we finish building the out of the box solution, the stakeholders are still going to be arguing about how they want their workflow done and differently. So the developers went ahead, they finished building the solution. I was right. They were done in like 3 weeks. I walked into the VP's office and I said, hey, we finished building the entire out of the box solution. And he said to me, you know what? Screw this. We are not customizing the solution by 70%. We're only going to customize 30% of the solution. And that's how we were able to launch the product in 3 weeks instead of, or rather in 6 weeks rather than 3 months. Now, why am I sharing the story? I'm sharing it because when it comes to aligning stakeholders, the best way to align stakeholders is give them something to respond to. You see how I told the story? It's not long-winded. I didn't go into the details of how we built, the solution. I just shared the part that matters to the recruiter or the hiring manager, which is, are you good at aligning teams? And when you align them, what is your approach? Now, notice another thing that I did very well is I shared a conversation that made the story come to life. And I zoned into a specific moment, which is the moment that I was having that conversation with the UX designer after the 4th meeting that we've been to and we're exhausted. And I gave him that idea of, let us just get the team to develop this in parallel while we're gathering requirements. So you see how I did that? And that is a magic trick that I give my clients. Now, I'm sharing this with you. You can use the framework right away. But the thing that you're going to struggle with is you're not going to have someone giving you feedback. In theory, it seems easy when I'm teaching this framework, but putting it into practice is the hard part. And that's the value that my clients get when they are part of my program, because there isn't a program out there that gets you to speak your interview answers out loud and to practice your communication in a storytelling mode and get critiqued in terms of what components to keep in your story and what to remove with someone who has context from a product perspective, from a transformation perspective, from an operations perspective, right? I mean, I have clients from different industries. I've had a client who recently landed a hospitality, offer. He's a hospitality leader. I have a client who landed a director, role recently. I have clients who are operations leaders. I have clients in academia. I have clients in healthcare. But the reason I'm able to understand my clients' stories and give them feedback is because as a consultant, I worked across multiple industries and was a transformation leader. And that is why I have the context and I'm able to critique versus a recruiter who may not have worked in the corporate world, or a recruiter who may not have been on complex initiatives or worked in Fortune 500 organizations. It's very difficult for them to actually give you that feedback because they don't have the context. They're not able to ask you the right questions to help you remember what you've done. They're not able to help you connect your story to what role you're targeting. Now, the other reason why, my clients get amazing results. In fact, I've had a client who literally only applied to 9 jobs, only 9, and he got an offer. Why? Because his messaging and his branding was strong, because his communication was strong. And by the way, guys, communication is not just about what you share in an interview, because the hard part right now for a lot of people is even getting the interview. And when you have been an executive for many years at an organization, you might have been able to move around in your career without looking for a job. Maybe through referrals, maybe through your network, maybe you got poached. Well, you know what? That's the old days. Now, a lot of my clients realize that they can't just land a job just through their network. They need to put themselves out there. They need to widen their net. They need to build a brand, because when you build a brand, you create more options for yourself, right? You're in this little bubble, the same people, you're just going to keep getting the same opportunities doing work that doesn't bring you joy. In order to do work that's different because you feel, you want to do more with your career, right? You need to expand your horizons. You need to create optionality for yourself. And in order to create that optionality, you need to expand and find opportunities that are outside your bubble. And so, what I do with my clients in order to make that happen is to build very strong messaging and a very strong brand so that someone who has zero context, someone who doesn't know them, is able to trust them. It's almost like being an entrepreneur. Imagine if I ran my business just from referrals. That's not a business. Okay. I have people who maybe have met me for the first time and they end up working with me. It's because I built a strong reputation through my messaging, through the way I articulate my value, through the way that I communicate. And so I gift my client this skill so that they never feel that they have to be at the mercy of anyone. And this doesn't just help them land a job, this helps them get promoted, this helps them build relationships inside their organization. So, storytelling is such an important skill and is something that you have to practice. And unfortunately, there aren't a lot of opportunities to practice because you're busy in meetings. You come home, you're tired. So you need to be part of a program that creates the discipline for you to practice. So even if you don't feel like it, you're still going to show up and practice. And you know what? My clients have a ton of fun when they come to my sessions. It's almost like Toastmasters for professionals. They learn from each other, they hear each other's stories, and the more they practice, the more natural it becomes for them to be able to communicate on the spot and tell amazing stories. Okay, this is going to be a short live. It's record. time. Usually my lives can go up to an hour. But you know what? I'm tired. It's been a long week. I launched an in-person corporate workshop with a friend of mine on Tuesday. It was a massive undertaking. There was food. Um, it was like 3 hours of basically helping people build their stories and giving them feedback on their delivery. And I just had an amazing, group session with my clients. And when I hold sessions, I just give so much of my energy because I want to make my sessions engaging. Therefore, I'm going to end early today. I hope you got a lot of value. Usually I show up and do these lives around 8:30 p.m. Eastern. So if you enjoy, my LinkedIn lives, tune in 8:30 p.m. almost every day. I'm live. Or if you don't know me and this is the first time that you see my live, I encourage you to connect with me or follow me because then you get notified when I'm live and you can catch my show. And if you are serious about making a change in your career, you feel stagnant, you feel that you want more, maybe you've been passed on for promotion, maybe you know that you should be making a higher salary, maybe you are working with a toxic boss. The point is that people are sometimes afraid to want more for themselves to grow in their career. And I encourage you to not let the logistics and not knowing how to do it to deter you from that. Because if you have a goal, then all you need to do is find someone who is an expert who can help you achieve that goal. Very simple, right? Okay, so if you want to inquire about working with me in order to help you with your career goals, I've worked with over 1,000 professionals all the way to C-level. Right now, most of my clients who are in my program are at the director and VP level. If you want to join my program and learn how to be an amazing storyteller and actually have a system that helps you identify your ideal role so that you're making the right career move, rebranding yourself so that you can create more options, more leads so that you don't feel like you're a prisoner in your job. If you want to be a great communicator and learn how to influence in interviews as well as in board meetings or senior executive meetings, then I invite you to book a career diagnosis with me. I will show you how to book that career diagnosis. So if you go on my profile, very simple. If you go on my LinkedIn, click on my name, and it's going to take you to my profile. There is a button that says book an appointment. Okay, I'm going to zoom in here so that you can see it. So click on that button. It's going to take you to my booking page. And you can see here in my booking page, my entire basically value is around helping people to not play small. And the purpose of this session is for us to actually help you diagnose what's blocking you from landing the role that gets you the advancement, the compensation, and the fulfillment you deserve. I encourage you to watch this very short 10-minute video for you to understand my story and why I got into what I do. I mean, if you've read my story, you'll know that I quit over text because I was so disempowered in my own career. And that's why I empathize with people. I have been that person who jumped from one company to another and still felt empty. I have been that person who felt burnt out. I have been that person who had to travel in my career and live out of a suitcase. It was not a fun experience, and I was extremely burnt out to the point where I lost half of my pancreas. So I encourage you to watch this video and listen to the rest of my story, and then book a career diagnosis by clicking on this button. It's going to take you to this short intake form. It's going to only take 2 minutes to fill it out. And that's going to give me clarity and a better understanding of what is it that you're trying to solve. Because That way I can spend more time with you in those 15 minutes, diagnosing what's blocking you and giving you a plan. And then we can decide together if it makes sense for us to work together to implement that plan. But either way, you come out of this session with more clarity so that you don't waste time doing the wrong things that sabotage your ability to achieve your goals. Okay, so that's pretty much it. It would really mean a lot to me if you guys give this video a like, because likely there's going to be someone out there who needs to see this, who would benefit from this. And yes, interviews are difficult to find right now. Yeah, they can be with the wrong approach, right? Well, what I'll tell you, is my clients, they're able to get interviews. Okay. It's kind of like saying, well, it's hard to lose weight. Yeah, it's absolutely hard to lose weight. It's hard to lose weight because it's difficult to be disciplined. It's difficult to, keep yourself from having cravings. It's difficult to make time to exercise. It is. It is. But when you are part of a community and a program, or when you're working with a coach who basically gives you systems in order to help you change your behavior, then it becomes easy. The hard part is actually not figuring out what you need to do. The hard part is sticking and having the motivation to do all of the things that are going to help you achieve the goal. Information is widely available, although arguably some of the information that I see on LinkedIn giving people advice on landing jobs, I mean, it's catered more towards junior people, not executives. That's number one. Number two, it's heavy on the spammy technique of like cold DMing, a whole bunch of people to get in front of them, which everyone is doing, and that's why it's not working. But my approach is different. My approach is based on quality versus quantity. When you create messaging that is more compelling, and when you position yourself as a thought leader, then things change. I mean, think about it. You're all listening to me. Why aren't you listening to someone else? Because of my ability to communicate in an engaging way. I practice what I preach, friends. And again, communication is not just what people hear, it's also what's on your LinkedIn profile, what's on your resume. Not a lot of coaches know how to teach people how to build a resume because not a lot of coaches are good writers. So they'll teach you other things because that's what they're comfortable teaching. They'll teach you cold DMing. They will teach you spamming people through email. They'll teach you networking, which isn't, in my opinion, networking. It's more because networking is relationship building. It's not asking for a favor from someone. But they don't know how to teach you to be a human and have an engaging conversation with someone. And honestly, they don't even start from the beginning, which is helping you figure out what the right direction for you is. They skip that part. And when you don't do that part where you spend time understanding what you're good at, figuring out the role that gets you excited, figuring out how to find that role that gets you excited, then you're not going to have the motivation. It's going to feel like work applying for jobs because it feels like, why am I doing this if I'm just going to get another crappy job? Right. And so that's the problem that I solve as well, because I went through that myself. If you go into my website, natabohendi.com, you are going to see my story of how I was not happy in my career. If you go into my about section here, you can read it. And you'll see that, in 2018, I texted my boss I quit. And at the time, I was 35 years old, female immigrant with a six-figure salary in tech. And I gave all of that up because I was not happy. I felt like a robot. And a lot of it came from my childhood with my parents, putting pressure on me to get straight A's, to do all of the right things. And so I confused being good at something with actually enjoying it. I was good at many things in my career, but I didn't enjoy it. And I felt that I had to just put up with it out of necessity because I didn't know what else to do. And so you'll read my story and see that I've worn many hats. And it was not until January 3rd when I had a 106-degree fever, about 42 degrees Celsius for those of you who use Celsius instead of Fahrenheit. And I got on a call with my coach and said, "Hey, my boyfriend left me. I need a job like yesterday." And she got me to do this meditation exercise. And I couldn't think of anything. Like, she made me do this exercise where I had to pick my ideal role, and I was just so burnt out. All I could think of was dancing salsa on a beach in Miami. And fortunately, the next day, it all sunk in, and I realized that what I wanted to be was actually a coach. And so that's pretty much my story. And actually, in during the pandemic, when I landed my first client, he was from Nigeria, and recruiters were lowballing him $75,000 offers when he was a head of IT, just because he didn't have the quote unquote Canadian experience. So, with my help, he ended up landing a $200,000 offer at a big tech company. And this is why today I do what I do. You know, I brought in 15 years of experience from tech and transformation at large organizations. And I channeled that into helping over 1,000 clients navigate career transitions. And the irony of all of this is that I actually use my transferable skills, because part of what I used to do in the corporate world is I used to lead massive transformations. We're talking up to $1 billion transformations, companies who are going through a big change. And now I help my clients go through personal transformations. So it is my specialty, helping people navigate change. Okay, I hope you all have a great night. And like I said, if you need help, book a career diagnosis with me and we can talk if we're a fit or not. Bye, friends.